Good morning, everybody. It's Vicki with the Lavinia World Video Design Team, and we are back on Monday morning, and we're going to put together just a super sweet note card. And if you follow along because you're subscribing to our video channel, you'll notice that my last couple of videos have been based around the alcohol lift or the alcohol ink lift technique. And I'm addicted to it. But I am going to go back to old school for the next video because I've got something planned. But I had some pieces left from a different lift project that I've done. And I thought we would just build something really sweet with this one. We're going to use Finn. We're going to use the fairy barnacle. We're going to use the snow shrub. We'll use Pippin, and then we're also going to use one of the whimsical hares. But if you can see this paper, you'll notice there's lots of brown, and there's purple, and this really pretty blue that is super close to the Versafine Clair, the Warm Breeze. So I'm going to pair this up with kind of a pumpkin or a rust-colored card, and I really like the way that looks. So instead of using black today for our solid images, I'm actually going to go with brown. And that's one of the things that I like to do with my cards is kind of match the ink, but I also like to keep it simple sometimes when I'm building out. So for this project, we're only going to use 2 inks. We're going to use the Pine Cone by Versafine Clair, and then we will use the Warm Breeze. And I just love how these match up, and they pair perfectly with our card. And I've had some scraps, so this is actually going to be the second card that I've made using these stamps. But we're going to start with, let's see, we're going to start with the fairy barnacle because that's going to kind of be the decoration at the top. Now, I know that you think fairy barnacle and then decoration at the top, but I don't know if it was one of the other design team members or a member in the Lavinia World Facebook group that I saw use this stamp for the first time with to make flowers, and now it's almost a go-to for me for that. So we are going to stamp this using the Warm Breeze. Now, on a lighter color background, I might actually stamp off the paper to get it a little bit lighter, but because there's so much of that blue in there, I definitely want this to pop off the paper. So I'm going to ink this up, and I'm going to do it at different levels throughout because I want it to be kind of a hanging vine. And when we finish this, it's almost going to look like Finn and the bunnies or hares are kind of looking up to smell these flowers. And they really, when using the stamp this way, it almost looks like maybe Morning Glory, where she's getting that perfect morning first smell or scent of the flowers. So I'm going to use the bigger end first, which has more of a cluster. And I'm going to put those off to the sides, a little bit in the middle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in with the longer, maybe tail end of the stamp here to get the little bit longer hanging vine. And it really sets really well with itself on the paper. And the flowers kind of go together. And so I'm just going to add these in. Doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry about getting them even. I mean, unless you're out there trimming your vines and stuff, they're never even. So don't worry about that. Make some long, make some short. Because remember, Finn is really tall, so you're not going to need them to hang too low. I'm going to come back in with just a short one. Okay, so that is the top. I'm actually going to put a little one over here in the corner so we don't waste any space. Now, what I do want to do is I want to put some up or down here at the bottom, and it's going to look like they're kind of in a field of these barnacles, but we're using this as flowers, so you kind of understand that. It's going to be super simple, and we're going to take some of the blue away when we go back in with our brown. And you'll see I'm just switching it up to give it some texture, give it a little bit of depth. But when we add the brown on here, it's going to take back out some of that bright blue color. Maybe just a couple of more. And I'm going to put one more long one in here. And because we're going to stamp our solid images last, it's almost going to give us a little bit of a 3D effect. I'm just going to wipe that rest of that ink off. I'm going to move that to the side because we're done with the fairy barnacle now. And we are actually done with the warm breeze until we go back in. I haven't decided if I'm going to do a silhouette. I didn't do one on the other because we will go back in with our brush and make it a little bit bluer around the edge. But so now we're going to take our winter shrub, our snow shrub, and it's a little hard to see in there, but this is a perfect stamp. It's got some nice branches, but then it's got some little bulbous leaves, or I don't even know what you call these, but they stamp perfectly. We're only going to use this at the top, and we're going to stamp this using the pine cone. And I'm only going to put a few. This is a perfect color to go across the top. And my stamp pads are newer. I got some new ones, so they're nice and wet. So I'm able to get a first impression pretty easily with these. And even with the first stamp, you can see it dulls out that blue just a little bit. And you could do it with or without, but I want this to be kind of fall-like with the browns. So I think it's going to take just a little. Hopefully you can't hear my dogs having a fit in the background. They are building a new house across the street. Okay, so we are done with this. Now, I have already placed Finn in my Misty, which we now have on the website. And I've put her at the top because she is taller. And I wanted to get her feet as close to the bottom as I can. So I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to hold our paper down. And I just want to confirm that that's where I want her. And you can't see my fin on here because she's kind of messy. I've stained her with a stamp on the back. But I've put her almost to the bottom, and the last of her wing is just at the very edge because we're going to have that. And this is an A2 card. I didn't tell you that at the beginning. So I'm going to stamp her first, and again, I'm going to use the brown. Now, I could have stamped her in black, but I want the brown this time, and we're going to do our hairs in the brown also. Give us a very fall-esque colored card. And this is super simple. And I've told you guys before that for me, deciding what I want is almost always the hardest. And then once I get going, it's perfect. So I'm going to stamp her up a couple times. Even though this is a wet pad and I've got a really nice image to start with, I want her just a little bit darker. She's one of my favorites. I just love her. Okay. I got a little bit of a double stamp, but not bad. I didn't push my paper back far enough, so I'm not going to worry about it this time. And then now I'm going to come in and I'm going to put this hair first. This is one of the whimsical hairs. I'm going to put him on first. Let's push that all the way over. And kind of in the center, because Pippin is so little. Right there. And we're not going to give this a whole lot because I think the barnacles really give us what we're looking for in this picture. And this is just a quick little note card that I'm doing. So we're not too pressed by that. So wet. It's picking the paper up. So I really need to be sure. When I played with this idea yesterday, I can't begin to tell you. I just couldn't get them to stop lifting, and then not being able to get them back in the right spot. I was struggling. Okay, so that's a nice crisp image, and if I found any little spots on him, remember I told you, use your markers and go back in and just fill it in. Alright, so now I'm going to put Pippin in here. He's so cute. And I want to put him pretty close to our whimsical hair. I like them as a kind of a couple. And not just always use the new hair set, which are fabulous, but I just like the sizes on this. So I'm just lining him up. I'm going to put him on, put the paper back where it belongs. I'm going to ink him up. He doesn't take much ink at all. Hold it down for a minute, let it go into the paper. Now, this paper that I'm using, I actually used a marker paper because I like the way it picks up the alcohol ink. So it does take it an extra second for the ink on top of it to dry, which is kind of nice. But it is a little bit smoother, so it's not quite as porous. So if you use that type of paper, especially with the VersaFine Clear inks that give you a minute to dry, give yourself that minute to dry. Okay, I am going to move this so he doesn't get on the pad. And we are done with our stamping for this. Hopefully that wasn't completely out of the picture because I didn't look up at the camera. But you can see on here we've got a super sweet, just a super simple card with lots of color. And although we normally, let me see if I turn this down like I always do. Okay, so you know when a lot of times when we stamp, we're using the black because they're the silhouettes. Don't be afraid to use brown or purples or whatever. Because remember, it's magical. So it's really going to kind of depend on what you like. So you can see that. So I do think that with this one, I want to add just a little bit more to it. And while I think there's a lot of blue on this card, I'm going to stick with the blue and do the silhouette. And so we'll go back to our Warm Breeze. And I've pre-cut a circle because I wasn't quite sure. And I want to get a little bit of the hairs and a little, it'll take up a lot of thin. But we want to highlight the circle where it draws, actually will come out of the hair. So we're going to come up into the snow shrub and into the barnacles or our flowers because we want to draw our attention to the top. And this smoothie is really pretty wet, so I don't need too much, and I'm just going to flick off the card. Oops. And it's really not quite dark enough. So let me think about this for a second about what we want to do. I don't think we're going to see it too much up here, so let's see if we can get it just a little bit darker. And I mushed too much, but we're going to definitely be able to see it, so there's that. And I'm just following the circle around. I got a little carried away with the ink in two spots, but we might be able to fix that, so let's take a look. And remember, we're going all the way around. Now, if we were up against a solid image, we might not do that. So you can see she shows, and I'm actually pretty happy with where the ink lays. Let me see if I turn us down. Can I get us out of that bright light? So while it's a little heavy up here, you really can't see that because we needed it to show through that snow shrub. And she's all done. So I love the way Finn looks in here. We could go back and maybe highlight her wings a little bit using maybe some purple to put in there. But I don't think I'm going to do that. And I'm happy with the way that looks. So we've got lots of blues and browns in there, and it's very fall-like. And so here's a purple one that I made, or pinks and purples, with the same card technique. Let's turn this. Maybe we're getting too much light there today. So, but you can see that. So these are just remnant pieces of some alcohol ink that I had put together, extras. And I'm going to do this one later on. And for this one, I'm actually going to use pink and browns because there's so much pink and brown in there. Can you see that? There we go. So I kind of love that. And but that's it. So we finished our card. Super fast, super easy. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. All of the artist and design team members have some great stuff that they're putting together. So I hope you like what we've put together. And if you have any questions, leave a comment and I'll be sure to answer you. Have a great day, everybody.